even looking at some of the promotion in the work that I do, it's geared and aimed at mothers. There's no equal representation to make fathers feel welcome to learn how to be a parent. And I think they are segregated from the process from the outset. Mothers are sent letters. They go to the scans. They're part of everything. It's like, oh yeah, and the father, they're almost an afterthought. So how do you expect a young man who doesn't come from a great family or a great foundation to be able to step up and say, do you know what, I can do this?
Are we doing enough as fathers to raise a generation of fully functioning young men? I think this is a topic that a lot of people kind of skim over, especially when we put the whole fatherhood part. I think we talk about mothers a whole lot, but we don't speak a lot as fathers, especially me as a black father of two boys for that. But Sarah, if I remember well, you actually brought this to the table.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I'd like you to actually kick it off and give your thoughts.
Cool, no problem. I was reading on a website. This is fatherless generation statistics, right? It says father factor in crime. A study of 109 juvenile offenders indicated that family structure significantly predicts delinquency. Adolescents, particularly boys in single-parent families, were at higher risk of status, property, and person delinquencies. Moreover, students attending schools with high proportion of children of single parents, and they are also at risk. A study of 13,986 women in prison showed that more than half grew up without their father, 42% grew up in a single mother household, and 16% lived with neither parent.
Big stats.
Yeah, big numbers.
Crazy.
Remy, did you like shapeshift a minute there? Because that's normally you. What happened?
No, listen, Sarah came through with a real impactful piece, and you just have to respect it. I think for me as well, considering the fact that in the UK it's between 10 and 13% single parent families are headed up by men.
Yeah.
So you got to look at it as a system as well. Like, it's not, I think there are opportunities for fathers to do more, but you've also got to consider the fact that this country has a very unfair benefit system. It's got a very lenient and somewhat sexist court system, because you've got to be, as a mother, you have to be damn near delinquent and really mentally unwell to lose the custody of your child.
Yep, I agree.
The default is always to give the mother custody of the child.
100%.
And I don't think that the court system or the benefit system is equal across sexes. I think that there is a genuine inequality there, which needs to be addressed. But then at the same time, what you must consider is there was a study done by the University of East Anglia that said a lot of single fathers have low educational attainment. They either have no state recognised qualifications or are only educated to a GCSE level. So you've got to consider the intellect and intelligence of that side.
Sure.
I can speak on behalf of a dear friend of mine who grew up without a father. He had his first kid, and his first reaction was, I can't do this. I don't feel like I'm going to be good enough. I don't want to. So what support is in place for fathers who weren't given a better example?
As opposed to mothers who have pretty much everything thrown at them from the time of inception almost.
Exactly. So you've got children's centres, you've got first-hand families for life processes and programmes which are aimed predominantly at mothers. Even looking at some of the promotion in the work that I do, it's geared and aimed at mothers. There's no equal representation to make fathers feel welcome to learn how to be a parent. And I think they are segregated from the process from the outset. Mothers are sent letters. They go to the scans. They're part of everything. It's like, oh yeah, and the father, they're almost an afterthought. So how do you expect a young man who doesn't come from a great family or a great foundation to be able to step up and say, do you know what, I can do this?
There's a clinical psychologist and psychiatrist that I read. Her name's Frances Cress Welsing, and she wrote a book called The ISIS Papers. And within it, what she said was that she doesn't feel like people specifically within the black community should be having children before the age of 30 to 35.
Why does she say that?
Now, when we spoke about the education, you said your friend was young, or you knew this guy that was young, and he had the woman was pregnant. He was like, I can't do this. Now, what happens with me? I never had my first child until I was 31, right?
So you listen to Francis.
So I listened to Francis. But the thing is, when you are 30, when you are at that age in this society specifically, you are more well-rounded. You're not in your 20s anymore. Like you've left a lot of the stupid stuff that you would have done behind, and you said, all right. Well, she said 30 to 35. And I really do believe that a lot of people are having children young, and they're not ready, and they're not ready for them.
100%.
And so the education with me says, and I did this on my podcast the other day because I've got my own. But thank you for promoting it.
What's the name of the podcast?
No, I'm joking. It's just on my YouTube channel, Sa Ra Garvey. It's fine.
Shameless plug.
But what I'm saying, is that you're having fathers or you're having babies too young, and I feel like the education of, I don't want to be disrespectful, but everyone knows what contraception is. That everyone does. Do you know what I mean? Everyone knows that if you don't use contraception, you can have a baby. And I don't know if people need to be re-educated about contraception, because it's not even hard not to have a baby nowadays. Like you've got to be really crazy in your mind to have a baby, because even if the condom split, you've still got them on and off the pill. Do you know what I mean? You've got so many nets that you can go through that can stop the thing. And if you have a baby now at this age and you're young...
But then do you consider from the other side of things, if a young man is in a relationship with a young woman and she's like, well, I want a baby young. The amount of women who say, I need a kid and a mortgage by 25 and 28.
And they don't realise how the fuck mortgages even work.
Do you know what I mean?
They got no
That's
idea.
very true.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's the exactly. They was like, yeah, I'm just going to buy a yard. I'm like, okay,
and
cool.
the cost of it, on average, it costs, I think, around £22.82 per day for the first 18 years of the life of the child. But it's expensive.
You're saying all of that. That sounds like Amharic to them. They don't understand it. They don't get it.
So, yeah, what about the pressures faced on young men? Because there are situations where they've used that protection, woman's got pregnant, boy sits down and says to God, you know what, I'm not ready. Can we go through certain procedures? And now we're having the kid.
Like I said, I think it's an educational thing, because like I said, I had to educate myself to know at the age not to have a child, because I knew I weren't ready. I was doing too many things. I knew I weren't ready, and a lot of the people know they're not ready, but then still choose to have it. So I'm saying, before it gets to that
when you say choose to have it, as in continue with it, or
continue to do
the choices.
Let's say continue to make the choices that make them have a baby. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, we all know whether or not we're ready or not.
So what happens after that process? So obviously there are people who fall through the net, like no one's perfect, whatever. You're in that position, you're having a child, you're young. Then what? Where do you think education?
Yeah, education.
100%.
And that's why
once you have a child young, it's then about educating.
And that is where I said my point earlier. The education systems and the support systems in place are geared towards women.
Yeah,
they go to women's centres, they go to antenatal appointments, they go to the maternity nurses and the health visitors, and they disseminate this information. And it's mostly to mothers.
I went to an all boys school. My children's mother went to an all girls school. We had nothing in place for teenage parenthood. Whereas her school had everything, literally everything. You could go to the nurse's office and you could get things like not so much morning after pills, but you can get condoms, you can get advice if you become pregnant or anything like that. If I go to matron and I'm saying, listen, this girl that I piped is pregnant, she's like, what the fuck are you talking? Like, nah, you gotta come out. I'm getting kicked out. Like, that's it. And we look at these things. So myself, me being a father, as I said, I had my first child at 21 and I wasn't ready. 100% wasn't ready at all. But I knew when she was pregnant. Like, I told her she was pregnant, believe it or not. I knew 100%.
What, during the act or afterwards?
How
are you pregnant now?
No. I said,
that was so good. I know you're gonna get pregnant after me.
Well, I mean, I do what I do. But that's besides the point. I mean, I look at it and I'm like, I see that you're moving differently. You seem ill,
you're
like
fat.
Randomly. Nah, she wasn't fat. But it came out that she's pregnant. I'm like, yo.
So what was the difference with you? How did you go through that process?
That's the thing. I had to get myself ready, and it's not that's not fair. But I had to get myself ready. I had to educate myself. Exactly.
What support systems did you find were in place, or was it hard to find them?
Oh, it was hard. Like, my mother, initially she was shocked and surprised. No. Fucking big man. She was
innit?
Exactly. She was shocked and surprised, but it was still like, all right, well, this is happening, so I've got to help you through it. My dad, he wasn't around when I was younger. Well, I say wasn't around. He was there, but he wasn't in the house. But I could still go see him and stuff like that. But me, if I'm being honest, getting help from him wouldn't have done anything, because it's like, you weren't there, mate.